G'day and welcome to the Off-Chain Podcast. Don here with you. My guest today is Ramon Recuero from KINTO. We're going to be having a conversation about perhaps a controversial topic within cryptocurrency space and blockchain generally, and that is KYC, or Know Your Customer. The bane of many people who believe in a truly decentralized future, but a very necessary and worthwhile thing for people wanting to ensure they're talking to who they think they're talking to, or investing in or with people that they are who they say they are. And so today we're going to be talking a bit about account abstraction and some various, other kinds of technologies. I'll let Ramon fill us in on how he's solving the problem of you not knowing who I am, but trusting that I am who I say I am. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. So buckle up and enjoy this conversation with Ramon Recuero. Tell me, Ramon, how did you get started in the crypto space? How long have you been around crypto? How did it look like for you to go from not in crypto to now working in crypto? Or do you even think about it as crypto? Do you prefer blockchain or Web3? What's your thinking around that?
Thank you. Yeah, it's even hard to explain how I got into crypto, because there wasn't a single moment that just is like, oh, now I'm in crypto before I'm out. But it started probably with some Bitcoin around 2012, 2013. I read the white paper from Satoshi. It was interesting. I bought a few Bitcoins, forgot about them. Then I invested in some kind of ICOs through Bitcoin, even in some poker website, but back in 2014 or so. There was the first mini crash back then. But then at the time in my career, I was also working as an engineer, because I'm an engineer by background, but I moved to the US to study my graduate program. And then I had my own startup in the gaming space, and I got acquired by Zynga. You know, the people that were building games like Farmville, Wars with Friends.
Big deal.
They were really big for a while. But then one day, Facebook, that is where most of their games were live, they changed the algorithm, the way the world worked. And then Zynga's revenue kind of dropped overnight, like 30-40%. And that was one of the key moments that led me to realize that if you are building as a developer an application on a platform that is not credibly neutral, is not open, is not decentralized, then at any moment they can pull the rug under you. And similar experiences have happened also on the iOS ecosystem over the years, and also in Twitter. Developers always had trouble because at any moment they can choose to remove your application if they decide to build it in-house, or they decide they don't like your application. And this is one of the main angles that drove me to crypto, the possibility of creating applications that are sovereign, that nobody can censor, nobody can change the rules of the game midway. And that was one of the main entryways into crypto. Then for me as an engineer, I continue working for many companies in the Valley. I work at Google. I also work on the other side on venture capital. I work for Combinator. And at that point, I was already really interested in how wealth works. That is one other thing that Bitcoin, everyone that goes to the crypto rabbit hole gets to question what is money, what is wealth. Because before you don't even question it, they don't teach it at school. So you don't think about it. But then once you start going through that rabbit hole, then you start to question those basic assumptions. And it's like, oh, is this really true because they tell me so? Or is it just because they don't really want to get into it? Like what is back in the US dollar, for example, what happened since the gold standard was removed in the 70s, et cetera, et cetera. And then one of the books of personal finance that I really like was The Richest Man in Babylon. And at that point, I was already really deep into crypto. I quit my job at Google and I started a DeFi protocol. This was around 2019. And I created a protocol called Babylon Finance, focused on helping people create groups of investors and invest together as a group. So it's kind of like investment clubs as a service for people on chain. And that's how I got started into crypto. There were a lot of other points there, because I also worked for OpenZeppelin. That was one of the leading security firms on the space, it still is, and they created the ERC20 token. I know I said a lot of things. Feel free to ask any specific questions, or we can go a bit deeper into the Babylon story
Oh yeah, man. I mean, lots of questions there. So, you, in terms of when you're thinking about startup founders and you're thinking about different companies, people like to put in their Twitter bios or on an investment deck to be able to say, Zynga, Google, YC, and then a prior startup as well. That's a good looking portfolio of work experience there. What kind of stuff were you doing, for example, at Y Combinator?
Yeah, well, Combinator, I was part of the team itself. I actually didn't go through YC. I went through the Techstars incubator. That is a different one as an entrepreneur. But then in YC, I was helping them build products internally, like the startup school that they have. That is their massive online course that to help people teach how startups work, then their internal tools that they have to control the portfolio companies. And I was also advising founders, mostly focused on crypto already. For example, OpenZeppelin went through YC while I was there, the same as Nadab, that was Dharma Protocol, that they got acquired also by OpenZeppelin later on. And then at that moment, YC was also an important push to move into crypto, because at YC, as I saw all the opportunities that crypto can offer in the fundraising industry, how it's much more efficient at allocating capital, at distributing capital, at raising money. That is something that you saw later in the ICO bubble. But then YC didn't have any need to go for all the opportunities and all the benefits that this can offer, because YC has almost a monopoly on the best founders in the Web2 space, because the previous best founders have gone through the program, then everyone applies to YC. And in the first batch of people, you have companies like Dropbox, Reddit. So then because they went through YC, then all the founders go through YC, and they have built these massive network effects. And it's kind of a bit like Innovator's Dilemma. They have missed a bit, although they invested in Coinbase and some really big centralized crypto companies. But on the protocol side, they have been a bit more reticent to start deploying on crypto protocols, unlike A16Z, for example. So because I couldn't do that much crypto on the YC side, that's when I decided to really leave, and I joined OpenZeppelin. So I switched from working at traditional Web2 company to going fully remote, working for an Argentina company. And this is before COVID, before everyone is remote. I was already living that lifestyle in 2017.
Yeah, so pioneering even the remote work life. That's pretty awesome. You mentioned reading The Richest Man in Babylon, and that having a big impact on you with regard to even just thinking about what is money. How are you thinking about, this is something that interests me personally as well. I have kids, trying to teach them about money. What is money? How has your idea about money changed, let's say over the last 10 years? So you, software engineer, you, had a successful founder experience, worked in Google, worked in YC, working in a venture studio myself. I know it's hard when you're consistently around innovation not to catch that bug and want to go out and do more entrepreneurial stuff yourself. But in regards to money itself, how has your thinking about money changed? And perhaps how did that then impact or inform your approach to Babylon Finance?
Yeah, really good question. I mean, it has been a multi-year process. During COVID, I actually got really interested in everything finance, reading a lot of things about how the plumbing of the monetary system works, from the repo market to bonds, duration, how the different preferences of investors according to liquidity risk, time, and then kind of distill all the lessons that I learned into Babylon. I mean, regarding money, in the end, it's also a bit sad, because you realize that, okay, money is just a number on a screen right now, especially in the system that we have right now. It's not backed by anything, and the banks basically at any moment can choose whether to give you your money or not, which is really, really, really troublesome if you think about it. But most of the time, nobody in the first world thinks about it, because in the US, for example, banks haven't failed since the Great Depression. But for example, I live in Argentina for a while, and there they have the experience of the Corralito 2 decades ago, where one day you try to go to the ATM and your money is not there anymore. They have 100% inflation every year. So they realized there that the government money is money, but it's not a way to store wealth because it gets debased every year. And it's something that is happening even in the developed world, but it happens at such a slow pace that is like the boiling frog, that the mental model that if you put a frog in boiling water, but the frog will notice. But if you just first place the frog in water and then you start slowly increasing the temperature, the frog will not notice and will eventually die. It's what happens with debasement and inflation. As long as it happens really slowly, the dollar, for example, has lost purchasing power over the last 100 years, has lost almost all of it, like 90%. And it's the same with all paper currencies. They have lost all their value. And then going back to Babylon was one of the first really prosperous civilizations. They were all based in really good trade. And in the end, money at a philosophical level is just a way to store favors and trade with each other. Because in the end, we are here to help people. And then if you help other people, you can kind of store those favors in money, so then you can use them at a later time, because you don't necessarily want something at the same time you're making the favor. So in the end, that's what money should help you do. But then money has the problem that is not appropriate at tracking wealth. That is basically how do you store those favors over time, and so you are able to use them later. Recently, I read a book that is from Edward Chancellor about the interest rates over time. I really recommend, and basically talks how money and interest rates are basically the same thing, and interest rates are basically the value of time. And then wealth should compound, because everyone that is able to give their money to someone else at a given moment should be compensated for that action, and then that enables the other person to do something that couldn't do without that capital from the person that is providing the capital. But interest rates is a long-winded story, but interest rates for the last 2 decades in the US and most developed world have been at an unnatural level and has created a lot of things, a lot of distortions that we are not seeing in finance. Sorry, I went through a lot of different things.
I love that, especially in terms of like the zero interest rate kind of season that we had for the last 10 or so years, or very close to zero. Trying to, again, I'm just thinking about how to teach my kids, or how to teach anybody about money. And when my kids, they're pretty young still, for like primary school age, they start to learn about how money works. They start to learn about, I read a report just last week that said that the US dollar is worth 27% less than it was 3 years ago, for example, which is unbelievable. Yeah. But then also for my kids getting into investing and going, well, if I spend $1 today, if I save $1 today, for example, if I'm not beating inflation, my dollar value goes down. But if I spend $1 today and buy a candy bar or whatever, and I could have invested that, and that's worth $2 in a decade's time. But then they do the math and go, okay, but if $2 in a decade's time is worth less than $1 today in today's value, and all of a sudden, not just for kids, but for anybody, especially people who don't think about money, becomes an incredibly difficult thing to try to understand what is the value of $1. And so how are you, for even right now, how are you thinking about the value of money, how to value money, and how things like that maybe your first attempt in Babylon Finance aimed to help solve some of those problems? And then I'm really keen to get onto the stuff that you're doing now to talk about solving those same kind of problems. Yeah,
exactly. I really agree with everything that you said there. And it's really sad also that regarding money, someone can be really good at what they do. Someone like, I don't know, a baker or a tailor, being really good at what they do. But then if they are not good as placing the money at the specific points of time in specific places, the difference of wealth that they have 20 years later is massive. Can be the difference from having negative money, having a lot of debt and no money, or having millions of dollars over their career. And that has nothing to do with their skill, nothing to do with how hard they work. So it's really sad. It's just because someone decided to click one button on one screen at a specific point of time, Then 20 years later, they have a totally different outcome that they didn't
or even
choose.
Geographically, like you said, you live in Argentina versus living in the States versus living in Zimbabwe, for example. And it's you could do the exact same effort, same outcome, same energy, and have wildly different wealth over time.
Yeah, exactly. And with Babylon, that's kind of the problem that I try to solve. Is like, okay, I let people on chain create investment clubs. For example, I was seeing a lot of opportunities in crypto, so I could create my own investment clubs and then tell my friends, okay, put the money here and we'll decide where to allocate it together. We decide whether to invest it in this protocol or this other protocol, lend Ethereum, borrow from it, stake these tokens, etc., to generate yield together and then automatically share it. And it's 24/7. There are no gating redemptions. You can withdraw at any time. You can deposit at any time. It's a rolling fund. And the project was going really well. We got more than $50 million in deposits over the period of 18 months since we launched. But then, unfortunately, one of the problems of crypto is that the ecosystem is still really mature. So a different protocol got hacked. That was one of the main protocols we integrated with at Babylon. That was called Rari Protocol. It was a lending protocol that had more than $1 billion in deposits, and they got hacked something like 80 million. And $3 million of our deposits got affected. And then our users on the screen where they said before that it was $1, now it was 70 cents or whatever. Mm-hmm. So then users, understandably, even if it was not directly our fault, then it triggered a bank run on our deposits. And then we lost all of our deposits kind of in the period of 1 week or two. And then this was also at the same time that the Terra Luna implosion happened, the Three Arrows Capital, then the STETH DPEG, the USDC. So then it was really, really hard to attract new deposits through this bear market at the end of 2021 and then beginning of 2022. So decided to close the project. And then long story short, then Rari Protocol eventually, because in my opinion, they were really mature and fake protocol that acquired Rari Protocol. It was kind of like a full drama. They first said that they were going to refund the money and cover up the hack, all the victims. But then a week later or 2 weeks later, they changed their mind through governance. And we told our users, no, everything is fine, don't worry. So then Babylon was still going fine. And then they changed their mind and said, no, we're not going to refund. And then 3 months later, then they changed their mind again and they eventually refunded. But all the damage was done. It was kind of like in the 30s, before the Great Depression and before the Federal Reserve was established, where JP Morgan was saying like gossips about other banks being insolvent. And that's all it took. Then the other bank would suffer a bank run, and then they couldn't open again, and JP Morgan would acquire them. Then they stay really cheap. So if you're a financial institution, you cannot close even for 10 minutes, even if it's not your fault. Doesn't matter. It's like it's gone. And we saw the same thing in Silicon Valley Bank. It's like how quickly things can change now with technology, that everyone can withdraw billions of dollars in the period of a few hours, thanks to the coordinations that the internet allows. So anyway, decided to close the protocol.
Late 2021 was kind of the beginning of the big decline as well. And like you say, with Luna, UST and Crew going down, with the whole macroeconomic outlook also going down then as well. That's bad timing, man, as well for that. And understandably, like with anything finance related, trust is like your most valuable commodity or your most valuable element. So even though it wasn't your fault as such, just for that trust to be gone, people are gone. And that's amazing. So tell me, what did you learn from that experience? How did that, or did that have any impact, or did it inform how you approached what you're doing now?
Yeah, it had a huge effect on me. First, it was really painful, both personally and professionally. I mean, you can tell, you're building this, trying to help users, working a lot of hours, and then something like this happens, even if it's not your fault. You can imagine how people react after having lost some money, even if it's not your fault, having to deal with so many users in Discord, and then eventually fighting for them, eventually getting the refund from Rari when they cover the victims, and then eventually
that's
having
an amazing
to close.
Result, by the way. That's actually
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unheard of, but it's very rare. It's a great result.
Yeah, really happy to be able to cover our users even in that period when everyone was suffering because of the crypto market was collapsing for many different reasons. But yeah, it was just done for our users because we obviously, we closed the project. We redistributed all the value of the treasury amongst all the token holders. The team didn't get anything because it was a failed project. I believe if you fail as a founder, you shouldn't get any upside. And the same with our investors. Just the team and the investors suffer all the downside, and then the users recover everything and all the protocol treasury. Then from that experience, then all the benefits that crypto have and that we leverage in Babylon, like being 24/7 decentralized, being able to coordinate, being able to send and receive money and deploy trustlessly without having to trust an individual person. Just the protocol has the rules. It's really powerful, but at the same time, nobody cares if they are gonna get a scam, hack, or racked. So we need to solve those problems before all the benefits of decentralization and all these abstract benefits make sense. So that's what I'm trying to solve with KINTO first, making this safe blockchain that is able to bridge the gap between crypto and traditional finance.
Okay, so how do you do that without losing the benefits of blockchain, like decentralized finance? How do you gain some of the? So how do you be trustless but also trusted?
Yeah, it's like everything in life. There is no free lunch, so it's always about trade-offs. The main difference of our blockchain with other chains is that we're a layer 2, but we have KYC at the chain level. But I know everyone who hears KYC is like, and I've been in crypto for many years. It's like you get like an immune reaction to hearing the word KYC. But yeah, and it's normal, understandably. But KYC at the moment, even if I believe it's an obsolete technology, and 10 years from now, with zero knowledge proofs, you shouldn't be able to give a photo of your ID to prove that you are from the US or from Spain, from wherever. You should be able to just send a proof without having to actually give your real document. But unfortunately, the reality right now is that the governments, financial institutions, banks, traditionally move really slow, and it's going to take them at least a decade to get on board with a new kind of identification system. So if you want to start growing DeFi, you want to start growing the crypto ecosystem now and not 10 years from now, then we need to provide a middle way. And the middle way that we're doing in KINTO is like we're providing KYC tools. So before people join our chain, that is totally open, we're still decentralized, but we have this requirement that if you want to use KINTO, you need to go through the KYC. And we put the user in charge. The user can choose the KYC provider they want. Something like Plaid, Synapse, Web2 companies that are really good at keeping the private information of users safe. And then KINTO, we don't store anything. And we also created the system in a way that even if these KYC providers were hacked, they don't have your on-chain address, so they cannot link your private information to your on-chain account. And then, anyway, once you KYC, then you receive this NFT, and then you can send transactions in the crypto network in KINTO. The other main difference that we have at KINTO, and is informed by my security experiences and also by the UI UX that I believe is the other main problem in crypto, we need to make crypto technology invisible, so users get all the benefits without being able to have to see the friction. Similarly to how now the cloud works. The cloud is powering these calls, powering this podcast, and nobody knows how it works under the hood if we're going through Amazon, through Google Cloud, etc., etc. So in KINTO, we have account abstraction at the chain level. We are forcing everyone to create a smart contract wallet, and that basically gives us a lot of security, because users are not going to be able to get hacked, scam, or rack as easy as they do on other chains. Like, for example, you see all the Bored Ape NFT holders getting scammed day in, day out, because here it's a bit complex, but basically instead of just having a normal account, you have kind of like a vault that is powered by a smart contract. So then it is much safer. And then because of the KYC and AML, you have native Sybil resistant in all the chain. So it's not possible to spam, DDoS, create fake accounts, create accounts to hack. So it provides a lot of higher security guarantees by default, and we'll also add on-chain insurance. In short, we're creating KINTO to be this bridge between DeFi and traditional finance with invisible UI UX and these higher security guarantees and KYC AML tooling, so financial applications can build the applications they want and check the compliance requirements that they need.
All right, so lots to dig into there. So talk about KINTO, trying to keep all of the, like you said before, about the being able to send and receive 24/7, deploy trustlessly, those kinds of things. But with KINTO, you've got KYC at the layer level. So if I join KINTO, I get a vault that is connected to me personally. And then under that, I can have wallets, which are also connected to me, or deploy smart contracts, which are, again, all connected to me, all connected to other people and those kinds of things. But I can engage with other people in a way that doesn't lead back to me personally. Yeah. So it's kind of what is it? Like, it's almost, it's not ZK, but it's kind of a 1.5 way to get there, which is kind of what you're trying to do with KINTO anyway, right? So is it built for TradFi, or is it built for crypto natives? I love the idea of the blockchain being invisible. I think that is a necessary step to greater adoption, is that we stop waving the blockchain flag and start just making great products with great UX that people want to use, that happen to utilize the benefits of crypto or blockchain more generally. So who's it for?
Long term, medium to long term, we want to onboard. We're a network, so we have three different kind of target users. On one side, we have the people that are going to create applications, the developers. Then another side, we have the investors that are going to deploy capital. And on the investor side, right now, all of crypto is kind of like the same 10,000, 20,000 users that are crypto native. They are comfortable with MetaMask. They are comfortable with handling their own passwords, their own private keys, and all that complicated stuff. But then there is a huge amount of users that, for example, have used Coinbase before, but they have never used Phantom. They have never used MetaMask, so they have never jumped or take the leap to use crypto, really. So on the investor side, we hope we can attract all these users that have never used crypto because it's too complicated. They don't understand it. Because in KINTO, we're going to offer this UI UX. For example, right now, our launch program is live, and you can already set up your KINTO wallet. And the only thing you need to do is like use your fingerprint for passkeys. You don't need passwords. You don't need anything. And with just using your fingerprint in your device, you can create your smart contract wallet. You can get the NFT. You can start sending transactions. And again, making the tech invisible. But this still gives you all the good things of crypto that is non-custodial. You get kind of like bank level security, or even country level security, but just using the tech that you're already used to. Then on the people that are going to develop applications, right now we're focusing the short term, we're going to focus on real world assets. And we're focused on real world assets because it's a narrative that is gaining momentum, and that is kind of triggered mostly because you can get right now 5% in risk-free rates in US treasuries, and then take advantage of that by leverage on chain, then borrow from it, looping it, etc., and connecting it with all the other investment opportunities available on crypto. So real world assets are a really good use case because they require, depending on the assets, and there is a huge long tail here from equity, debt financing, etc. Many of them can only be served to a specific jurisdiction. And KINTO gives the tools to developers so they can check. It's like, okay, for this application, for only people that are in this jurisdiction on chain can interact with this protocol. And we already give all those tools, and we also make it free for developers. We do KINTO, because the cool thing about KINTO is kind of like the Apple Store, that users only need to KYC once and they can use all the application inside. So it has network effects for the users. In KINTO, a user only needs to KYC once, and then they can go visit this protocol that offers treasuries, then this other protocol that offers mortgages on chain, etc., etc. And for the user, it's like the KYC once, and then they are in. Right now, all the RWA protocols that are on other chains, each one of them is doing their own KYC process. So it's a lot more painful for users, and it's a lot more painful for these applications because the cost of onboarding users is much higher, and they have a huge drop-off in the funnel for these applications. And then on the applications, medium to long term, we already have conversations with really big financial institutions in the US, and they are already doing pilots. They're already starting. It's not like 2018 or 19. The institutions are coming. They were not really doing anything. Now I can tell you that all these financial institutions are seriously looking into it, and you can tell, like the BlackRock moment, having the Bitcoin ETF, it kind of legitimizes the space. So now if you don't have a strategy of how to jump onto crypto, then you're not going to make it. And KINTO is going to be a really good place for them to try stuff, because their compliance department, their compliant person is going to see, okay, I need a chain that meets all these properties. And then KINTO is going to meet all of them. And then the cool thing about KINTO is like you can still leverage and be connected to all the opportunities, all the innovation, all the liquidity that is mostly in the open decentralized networks ecosystem, like mostly Ethereum, also Solana, but still be able to get these properties that you need for compliance, like KYC and AML. Because so far, and for the last 7-10 years, institutions have been trapped kinda in this corner of creating their own private networks where there is no activity, there is no innovation, there is no velocity of money, because it's just a few people in a consortium exchanging things with each other. And there are a few private networks like that. And it's the same in the internet. There were intranets as well that they were competing. No, let's do in private just for ourselves. In the end, open networks always win. That's why it's really important for us to create in this layer 2, connected to the main open decentralized network for financial applications, that is Ethereum, but offering that middle way for institutions that require this KYC and ML. And for users, our main value proposition is like they're going to be able to use our wallet really easily with an invisible user experience and with much higher security. So they're not going to get scammed, they're not going to get hacked, they're not going to get racked.
How are you finding the feedback to this layer level KYC? Like, as I think back, 2014, it would be unthinkable for people in blockchain to be thinking, or really Bitcoin at the time, to be thinking about KYC. But by the time the ICO boom came about, like 2017, even 2018, people would do KYC begrudgingly for some things, but still people are like, KYC. Whereas, today I think that it seems to me, at least anecdotally, in my experience, that kind of the tipping point may have come where there's been so many scams and hacks, and especially over the last couple of years, just trying to decide or discern who can you trust in a trustless environment where it's supposed to be, you don't need to trust people, but in reality, there is always going to be some level of trust in some of the projects with regard to finance. How are you finding people responding to this mandated KYC today, 2024?
Honestly, many people, when we shared the idea initially a year ago and we saw the fundraising, initially the immediate reaction was negative from a lot of people, but then once they actually see the details and how it works, because we like to call it user-owned KYC, we are just doing, all our architecture is based on the premise that the users own their data. It's still privacy preserving. Nobody can see your personal data, but it gives developers the tools for the use cases that require to be able to create financial applications that meet that requirement. Like, for example, this product can only be served to accredited investors. This product can only be served to Europe and the US, etc., etc. But still gives you the choice of be connected to where all the innovation, all the applications are, that is on open networks on Ethereum. Because this is not like KYC shouldn't be applied for everything. For example, in KINTO, we have this KYC at the chain level, and we want KINTO to be the place where new applications are built that have these compliance requirements. But if you need to just buy STETH or buy Ethereum, you don't need to use KINTO. And we don't want to redeploy, for example, on Uniswap protocol on KINTO. We don't want to deploy Compound. We don't want to deploy Aave. we don't want to fragment liquidity. For the use cases that are working and that are great on mainnet, KINTO will help multi-chain. For example, if you want to buy ST from KINTO, you can do it, but we'll go to mainnet. We're not going to deploy the same protocol on KINTO like many other chains. I see them that they're just deploying everything, the same thing. So at the end, you are just a faster mainnet, but there is no other differentiation. No, in KINTO, we just want to be the home of the protocols that are unique, that require either this higher security, either faster scalability, or either this compliance check, and then connect it, bridge, and compose with all the other investment opportunities that are already available on mainnet, Arbitrum, etc., etc. But we don't want to force all the developers, or it's like, oh, KINTO is just the same as Arbitrum, the same thing, but it's just it has less liquidity and less users. No, our applications are going to look really different, both from a user point of view and then from a developer's point of view as well.
So do you think this is going to be something that's more common with L2s coming out? Because like you say, it's just been duplication of the L1, but slightly faster and perhaps less decentralized in most situations. And do you think this is going to be I mean, obviously you're pursuing it because it's better. Do you think it's going to become more common that people are having L2s for a particular or specific purpose? Is that you just doing that because that's what's actually going to work for you, or is it more of an ideological push for you as well?
Yeah. In 2017, everyone was creating a DeFi protocol. Now in this cycle, everyone is creating a layer 2. The thing is like, it's really powerful because at the chain level, you can customize the chain for your use case. So it's really powerful. But if your only differentiation is that you are like mainnet, but 10 times cheaper, that's not going to get you anywhere long term. That's why it's going to be a power law. Right now, there are probably hundreds of L2s. There will be probably thousands. But then in the end, it will come down to just 5 to 10, the same with layer 1s. And they are all great for different use cases. I see an L2 for gaming makes a lot of sense. Probably one of them will make it. Then on the L1 side, having Solana also making it, I think it enables different use cases, because Solana has like this, what they like to call is like this world supercomputer that goes at the speed of light, and it's less this central mainframe, so it has all the data in the same place. Layer 2s have the problem that is right now it's really difficult for one layer 2 to communicate with the other layer 2s. For example, something like Base communicate with Arbitrum, with Optimism, with KINTO. It's harder to make those bridging right now, but in Solana you don't have to worry about that because it's all in the same place. So depending on your trade-off, depending on the use case that you're trying to serve, it's really powerful now that we have the tools to be able to customize and create your own blockchain for your use case. For example, another use case that is happening, and the applications that are really successful will probably pursue, like the YDX, is just creating one blockchain for your own use case, and you can customize it as much as you want. But making generic chains and just a copy of Arbitrum, copy of Optimism, but just making it a bit cheaper, I don't believe it's gonna make it long term, because in the end, blockchains, what they sell is blocks and this coordination around blocks that gives you this higher security. And now there's going to be a lot of surplus of blocks because there are going to be so many chains. So being able to offer more blocks cheaper is not gonna cut it.
Yeah, gotcha. So let's go back to some of the USP of KINTO, for example. Doing this at a layer level rather than an application level means that, for example, if there was a hack, you'd know who did it, and you could potentially, depending on how decentralized it is, stop those funds from being bridged out or escaping the ecosystem, or for any kind of bad actor, you'd be able to do that. That is also one of the perhaps hesitations of the decentralized maximalists who might say, well, I'm a good actor, and so I want all of the freedoms of being a good actor without people being able to find out who I am or what that looks like. So how are you approaching this again philosophically, being someone in blockchain, someone who sees the benefits of crypto, for example, while also trying to mitigate some of those bad actors? Yeah,
as you say, it's a trade-off, and there is a middle way. In this case, for example, it's true that if something happens, for example, you KYC through this KYC provider to jump onto KINTO, and then they add you to a sanction list, and then automatically KINTO will get notified, and then will add that flag to your account. So then you won't be able to execute or interact with applications that require you to be sanction free. Unfortunately, this is the way that the real financial system works right now. Right now, even with identity theft in the US, that is like really, really terrible how it works, but it will take you a long time to be able to go around it. The thing that we're trying to do in KINTO is first make all the KYC owned by the users. So the users have a choice of which KYC provider they pick. Then the users will own the whole network, because KINTO will be owned by its participants and by its members. That's part of the goal of the launch program that is already ongoing. And then through this governance mechanism, the users will be able to even pick which KYC providers are available for users to choose to onboard onto KINTO. Then whenever a hack happens, for example, then the users will be able to vote and be able to reveal the identity of an attacker to the relevant authorities if necessary. But the key thing there is, like, on chain, there is no public information, so nobody can see any public information, any private information about anyone. Only in really specific cases will the KYC providers be notified of, this person is actually this address, and then the authorities could use that information to target a specific person. But it needs to happen. It's kind of like the level for that to happen is really high. So we really care about privacy, and we have designed the system kind of like the Horcruxes of Harry Potter, that if KINTO doesn't store any data, the only thing it stores is kind of like an encrypted mapping of, okay, this on-chain account is tied to these IDs on the database of the KYC provider. So in the way that KINTO gets hacked, that small database, that is the only data that is not on-chain, then hackers don't really have anything. In the case the KYC providers get hacked, they don't see the on-chain addresses. So, and it's really unlikely, because these KYC providers like Plaid, they are really secure. They use banks. They are one of the best financial companies. But even in the case they do, they couldn't compromise KINTO either. So we have spent a lot of time thinking about privacy, thinking about security, and thinking about these trade-offs to be able to achieve a really good middle way that can remove like 90% of the surface area for attacks, to offering one order of magnitude higher security, and with really little trade-offs, because the chain is still decentralized, the chain is still owned by the users, the chain will still be credibly neutral. That's why we are working with many different partners without picking favorites at every layer of the stack, to make sure like KINTO is non-opinionated. KINTO will be governed by the users, and the users will pick which partners we work with. Because if financial institutions are going to build on top of a chain, I think it's important that this one is credibly neutral, because if JP Morgan is building one chain, you probably expect that Bank of America is probably not going to be willing to build on top of that one. I said a lot already. I'm rambling.
Well, it sounds a little bit like KINTO is an on-chain decentralized bank. Like, many of the features are the same kinds of features that you'd hope to, or protections at least, that you'd hope to try to get the best of the bank world and the best of the blockchain world. Does that sound like an insult to say that, or is that something that is? Is that
it's almost accurate. I would say that it's kind of like the decentralized technology that allows people to create banks. I mean, we kind of give like a little bank to each user that is on, but then if you want to build an application or actually build, I don't know, like something more on chain, then you use and build it on top inside the network.
Yes, gotcha. And so have you said before, obviously I'm not expecting that you'll speak specifics in this regard, but you're speaking to banks or the kind of TradFi institutions that would benefit from something like KINTO?
Yeah, we see it as different waves of people that are going to come in different periods. Right now, we have talked with actually some banks, even some asset managers, some hedge funds, some crypto hedge funds, some family offices, and the progression is going to go like that. It's going to be first crypto hedge funds, then family offices, then people, asset managers that are already looking into crypto, or they perhaps have even already some ETF that is offering crypto, and then banks will be the last ones. But we already have had conversations, but it's going to take a few years. So in order to not wait for them and don't have any traction, that's why we are targeting first crypto existing users, and then later expand on both sides, on the user side to expand to fintech users that have never used crypto, on the application side, expand an investor side, expand to some crypto hedge funds, then traditional hedge funds, family offices, and then go from there.
So you mentioned before about maybe a 10-year time horizon to transition to, ZK proofs and banks being on board, really fully. What does KINTO look like over that decade? How are you going to be not just rolling with the changes, but actually helping to make those changes happen? What does it look like in your roadmap?
Exactly. I could kind of really love to kind of swap this KYC piece and just swap it for a KYC solution that gives you censorship resistant and civil resistance. So you can prove that you are one person, and nobody can prevent you from using it if you can prove that. But at the same time, there is an assurance that you can do that. Another way of thinking about it is like, instead of KYC, if all the governments of the world would approve WorldCoin or something like that, I'm not saying that I like the WorldCoin or I endorse WorldCoin, but it's an alternative to KYC. Then using something like that, then you can prove that every person is unique. So it could be a solution. Another solution, Vitalik also had a blog post of other alternative solutions to KYC, because KYC is a bit obsolete, but is the standard right now for governments and financial applications.
Okay. So you're more like, is it wait and see then, or is it have that in your back pocket ready to go? Is it trying to push banks by showing them the technology, or is it more of a sovereign state thing? It's actually countries themselves that need to come on board with it.
Yeah. The thing is, like, some people in crypto want decentralization at the expense of everything else, including the growth of decentralized finance. But that's why I'm not gonna. The tech is ready. The zero knowledge proofs, most of the tech is ready. The problem is getting the regulation, getting the legal stuff passed, and through all the bureaucracy, and getting the laws changed, getting all that. And I don't want to wait for 10 years to onboard all these people and create all this value. If we want to start creating value for people, today, and we want to start helping people create wealth, we need to offer a way right now to get all these users, all this value, move on to the on-chain financial system. And that's what we're trying to do at KINTO.
Sounds great, man. It is a laudable effort, and it sounds like you have the technology to make it happen as well. You mentioned before real-world assets being kind of the first focus for KINTO. And absolutely, RWA, man, they are hot right now. I think 2024 is the year for real-world assets to finally utilize what has been sitting there, in blockchain for a very long time. What else are you seeing in terms of just the greater, broader Web3 landscape? What are some of the moves that you're seeing? What are some of the narratives that you're excited about this year? What are some of the, like you talk about building wealth, what are you most excited about in that arena? What should be people, without giving financial advice, where should people be looking, generally speaking?
Yeah. Generally you want to be buying stuff that is not consensus. For example, right now, one thing that is obvious to me is that Ethereum has been like the reality of where Ethereum is at, or what I perceive is the reality versus what the market perceives the reality is at right now. I think I see a huge disconnect. That's one area where I think there is a lot of opportunity. The same way a year ago, there was the same opportunity with Solana. After all the FTX, everyone goes super depressed. Everyone sold all the Solana. And then there's a really real amount of developers and ecosystem that is really strong. So I was not surprised by the way they came back. So the Ethereum ecosystem is really strong. I think also the liquid restaking is going to enable a lot of use cases. It's going to enable a lot of financialization. Hopefully nothing implodes there, but there is potential for it. Then the gaming side, me coming from gaming, I think one game this cycle is going to be really, really massive, and it's going to attract a lot of people into crypto the same way in the last cycle was NFTs. I think this cycle is going to be 10, 100x bigger, and it's going to be through a game.
Which game do you think that's going to be?
It's really hard to tell, because with games it's more as an art, and when you work in games, it's like you can build 40 games, and then it's the 41 that is gonna make it, and it takes years. You need art, you need good game mechanics. Then, because most of the games that have been done in crypto have been like a crypto application that kind of look like a game, but you haven't had yet like a really well done game made by game industry veterans that then have some crypto mechanics, like you can own your asset, you can sell them, you can resell them, etc., kind of like a Diablo or Warcraft. And these things make sense for everyone and have been working for 2 decades. Like Diablo and World of Warcraft had like in-game stores, but they took like 30% of all the features. They could automatically change the items whenever they want. So owning digital assets on chain, and in the end, it's what the internet gives you like property rights on the internet. It's going to make it. It's like you don't know exactly when this game is going to happen, but in the last 2 years, more than 100 big studios were funded with a lot of money, and the games are coming out starting second half of this year, and I'm confident one of them is going to have millions of users.
If you weren't doing KINTO, being a founder, being a developer, what would you be doing now? Obviously, when you're pursuing something, that means saying no to lots of other things. If you weren't doing this, what would you be up to?
That's a hard question, because I feel a lot of calling when you do something for the world of the universe. I always tell the same thing about KINTO or before Babylon. It's like I really didn't want to do it, because doing a startup it's not the easiest thing to do. Everyone thinks it's glamorous. No. It's the hardest thing you can possibly do. So it's exhausting, but it's like I couldn't help but doing it, because the universe, I stay awake at night thinking about these ideas, and it's like, okay, there's something is pushing me to get this done, and it's like the universe is getting this done through me. And it's kind of, I don't know if you have read, there is this book called The War of Art by Steven Pressfield, and it talks about creating anything, like writing books. It's all the same. It's like you think like what you are doing, it kind of, you have this idea that comes from no, it's kind of, it comes from this collective unconscious, from the universe, that is kind of through you is making this happen. And then for whatever reason, either for this to be successful or for this to be out there, and then someone else get an idea from that and taking it further. So it's like, I cannot help but working on this. If I wasn't working on this right now, what I would feel nice is like taking some time off and then go for another long meditation retreat. I went to a 3-week silent meditation retreat, Vipassana. That was great. I also been to Peru, many other places, doing experiences to kind of wake me up as much as possible. And then I love meditation, love getting in touch with the world, finding serenity, finding peace. So at some point, once KINTO and the universe lets me rest, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to.
All right, so fully 100% sold on KINTO is basically what you're saying. And if you weren't doing it, you'd be preparing for whatever the next KINTO is, or whatever KINTO would have been.
Yeah, it's really funny, because after Babylon, I tried to rest. And I even joined a crypto fund, kind of helping them due diligence projects to invest. But then I couldn't help it after I lasted less than 2 months. It's like, no, it's like I was getting this idea. I needed to do it.
That's great, man. Anything else you want to share about KINTO? Anything we haven't covered yet that you think, man, we really should have chatted about that?
No, just that our launch program is live now. People can start going through the KYC process, creating the their wallet on KINTO, and then people that go through all this process before we finally go live in March will receive exclusive benefits. And you can see more of our at our website at kinto.xyz and at our Twitter account at kintoxyz.
That's great, man. And if anyone wants to hear more from you online, where can they find you?
You can find me at my name and last name at Ramon Recuero on Twitter. And you have my personal website and everything there.
Yeah, we'll have the details in the show notes as well. Really appreciate you coming on the show today. Thank you for your insight into what is money, how does it work, how blockchain's helping, and in particular, how KINTO is going to be helping bridge the gap between now and in a decade's time in terms of onboarding people who otherwise wouldn't be in it. Again, really applaud you for what you're doing, and all the best with 2024.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. Take care.
Thank you for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Off-Chain Podcast with me, Don Redden. We love bringing you great guests like Raymond talking about things about the future, about technology, about blockchain, and about how you can utilize these things to create a better tomorrow. Please join us again next week for another great episode of the Off-Chain Podcast. Catch you then.